Oh, what do we have here? A new upcoming trailer for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Well, I'm kind of excited to see what this is like. Let's take a look. After being burned by Sword and Shield, I mean, how bad could this get?
The newest titles in the Pokemon series are the Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet games. These titles will be open-world RPGs.
Okay, I'm fully aware that this video is probably going to be controversial and get a lot of people angry over me talking about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet already, considering that the games aren't even out yet. And I do really hope that when the games finally do release, they end up being fantastic experiences. The thing is, I don't think Game Freak truly understands the magnitude of creating an open world experience for Pokemon. With so much stuff to do in the Pokemon world, will they actually be able to adapt that into a true open world experience? Unless the game is specifically built for open world, it tends to result in the games losing some of the charm of the past. You got games like Nier Automaton and the Elder Scrolls and The Witcher, which were clearly built for that, but then you have games like Breath of the Wild, which weren't. They lost some of their identity in the translation. With that said, I do think the risk Breath of the Wild took was worth it because their attempt at making an open world game worked out well. But how would a standardized RPG morph into that type of gameplay? Standardized RPGs work well when you have a very specific design in mind, and I mean, Alexa, how many Pokemon are there?
There are 890 Pokemon.
How much?
Also, apparently it was wrong and there are actually 905 Pokemon, but All of this discussion topic on Pokemon going open world, though, made me wonder if Pokemon can even convert into an open world game effectively. And in order to do that, I had to compare it to another open world game, which there is one that I've poured hundreds of hours into that I felt was perfect for this kind of comparison. And so, the game is... When Oblivion first came out, I remember playing it for hours and hours on end, and I played it a lot. I had the Xbox version, the PS3 version, and of course I moved on to the PC version, which is what this was recorded on. However, the game itself isn't perfect. It has a lot of bugs and issues, typical Bethesda stuff. There's still plenty of people who insist that Morrowind is better, or some people prefer Skyrim, and more power to those people, but the point of this is not particularly on that. With Pokemon Scarlet and Violet advertising itself as an open-world game, it's only fair that fans be able to compare it to other open-world games. Scarlet and Violet have yet to release at this point, so all I can do is really theory craft. But regardless, I do hope that the games end up being good. This is nothing against the games, just curiosity on whether or not they can accomplish what they set out to do. With that said and done, please don't take this video majorly seriously. I'm not saying that Pokemon needs to be exactly like the Elder Scrolls or that it can't do its own thing. This is just kind of how exactly would this type of thing work. It's nothing more than that. If you were to ask somebody what the general premise of a Pokemon game is, they'd probably give you a synopsis something like, "Hey everyone, and welcome to the world of Pokemon, where the local professor has tasked you with the objective of categorizing and capturing every single known species of Pokemon in the world. Along your journey, you battle against your rival as you attempt to fulfill the Pokedex and get all 8 gym badges so you can become the champion. Along the way, you also manage to topple an evil organization, planning on using Pokemon for various different evil, heinous crimes. In addition to that, they plan to capture some kind of legendary and use it to their advantage. All of this eventually wraps up with you defeating the Elite Four and becoming the champion, but not before you have to topple your rival, who has constantly hounded you throughout your journey and is constantly giving you a lot of trouble as you make your way to the top and become a Pokemon Master." If If this sounds familiar, it's probably because this has been the repeated story for most of the games in the series, with the exception of Sun, Moon, Black, and White and their sequels, and I guess Legends Arceus. Legends Arceus also attempted to change things up a bit by putting the main emphasis on the Pokédex rather than focusing on completing an Elite Four or anything like that. The main story still plays a very important role in the game, but in general, Pokemon has always stuck to a similar formula, and over the time, it's kind of become a bit stale. Many people are hoping that this game will have more adventures. The Elder Scrolls, for example, starts off its main quest like this.
I was born 87 years ago. For 65 years, I've ruled as Tamriel's emperor. But for all these years, I've never been the ruler of my own dreams. I have seen the gates of Oblivion, beyond which no waking eye may see. Behold, in darkness, a doom sweeps the land. This is the 27th of last seed, the year of Akatosh 433. These are the closing days of the Third Era and the final hours of my life.
The opening in and of itself pulls you into the immersion and gets you excited about the story that you're about to embark upon, but to top that off, it's only just beginning. Upon spawning into the Imperial City prison, you also get to witness more of the story as part of the tutorial, as opposed to having to wait several hours into the story to find out what's actually going on. You get to see the experience play out in front of you.
The Amulet of Kings. Take the amulet, give it to Joffrey. He alone knows where to find my last son. Find him and close shut the jaws of Oblivion.
Die, stranger! You chose a bad...
We failed. I failed. The Blades are sworn to protect the Emperor. Now he and all his heirs are dead.
The way characters react and interact with each other, even around the world where you can find people talking about the assassination of the Emperor, speaks volumes of how important this event is in the history of the world, and it really makes the world feel complete. Do I think Scarlet and Violet will do something like this? Probably not. I wouldn't be sure how exactly Pokemon can incorporate a more serious storyline, and I don't even know if it should. Pokemon's formula is used so constantly because it works. At the end of the day, though, I would like to see them experiment with maybe some side stories and ideas that could expand the game for a bit more for people, as playing the same thing 9 times does get really stale and really, really boring. They need more than just the same tried and true method this time around, I think. And honestly, there is possibility for that in an open world game. Once you've made your way out of the Imperial City prison and finished the tutorial fully, you're pretty much free to go anywhere and do whatever you want. This is part of what makes an open world experience so great. With the sheer amount of options for whether or not you want to combat, or evade, or trick, or pickpocket, or kill, there's so many different options for how you can approach combat or avoid it, that it helps to make the game more fun. Speaking of which, that segues into the next part of this conversation. So now we've hit the process about character customization and being able to make your own character, so to speak. And when it comes to open world games, many of them have different options for you to pick, such as different character archetypes with different stats and so on and so forth. Pokemon has always generally stuck to character customization being restricted almost exclusively to inventory items and the Pokemon you choose to carry with you, which doesn't feel very expansive. In my opinion, a more modernized Pokemon game would allow you to select your trainer class off the start of the game. So for example, maybe a fisherman class would have an easier time catching fish in Pokemon found in water, but would struggle to catch Pokemon found in mountains. You could choose to be an ace trainer who has a higher chance of catching rarer Pokemon and finding rarer Pokemon, but maybe they gain experience at a slower rate. And if this kind of stuff sounds like something that you wouldn't enjoy, there's always the option of choosing to play as a normal trainer, which is just equalized statistics. You don't get any benefits, but you also don't get any downsides. This type of gameplay adjustment I think would majorly change Pokemon and give a lot of replay value, since you might want to do a challenge room where you try to play as a class that you're not familiar with. There's also the star sign that I glanced over, because it's basically just a bonus, basically your starter. However, the part of this that I was most excited for was definitely the class-based system, which allows you to select your skills and your preferred stats, which help benefit your overall character design. Now, in Pokemon, they don't really have a system for this. Pokemon are restricted to HP, physical attack, physical defense, special attack, special defense, speed, and sorta kind of evasiveness. But I don't think that the skill system would apply effectively to Pokemon stats. I feel that it would more effectively apply to types, actually. If you were to incorporate them like, say, this, then perhaps it would work out particularly well. For example, certain Pokemon would be more effective at just about anything, such as normal types, whereas certain Pokemon like ghost types would be better for sneaking around since they can hide in the shadows. There would also just be additional things you could do, such as fire types being more risky for sneaking because they'll draw attention because they glow, psychic types can detect lives nearby, and fighting types can just break through things if they need to. Now, I may not be a game developer myself, but most of those abilities seem like things that would be relatively interesting to try to incorporate in. How well they would work and whether or not they'd need proper fine-tuning or testing ultimately comes down to the developers, but that is kind of their job after all, so they would ultimately have to decide whether or not they think it's worth investing in or whether or not it's good enough. That's just part of the game. With Pokemon headed for an open world experience, this is the thing I am most curious about. In the event that Pokemon does allow for open world exploration, will the encounters be scaled to match the player, or will they all casually remain the same throughout the game? This is an important point to make because there is a certain value in having scaling and a certain value in not having it. I'm going to apply some logic to a couple of different scenarios to showcase what it's like if there is scaling and not scaling.
Best you can do?
Jump on my sword while you can.
Something rather important to note about this is that in that example, the character had more options with which they could use in this encounter. I stuck with the blade for the test, but I had the option of paralyzing, using magic spells, using resistance spells, etc. In the case of a higher level player, they have more options with the engagement, so having to fight stronger enemies isn't an issue since they can always change up their playstyle. Meanwhile, a level 1 character playing on the highest difficulty has none of these options, leading to situations like this. This would be the equivalent of a new player in Pokemon attempting to take on Gym 8 without any effort made to it. Their Pokemon would be around level 50 and he's only at level 5. This would probably be the result for the majority of players, and it basically just shows that they don't stand a chance. However, in some instances, the act of scaling up levels could have been quite beneficial to the game experience. Take, for example, the original Pokemon games. In those games, it's possible to do the badges out of order to the point where after beating Misty, you can go straight to Koga and battle him. The jump in level requires you to jump from level 20 Pokemon to level 40 Pokemon, but it's still a potential option. However, because Gen 1 does not have scaling, if you manage to beat Koga, going back to fight Erica and Lieutenant Surge at that point just becomes pointless, because their Pokemon are really low level compared to Koga's, which means that if you can beat him, you're basically going to steamroll and flatten the other ones, so the entire point of beating them becomes moot. Like, at that point, you might as well just be given their badges, because you're stronger than they are and they don't stand a chance. This could have been fixed if there was scaling, because, for example, Lieutenant Surge in the original game has a Pikachu, a Voltorb, and a Raichu. If you were to fight Koga first and thereby make Lieutenant Surge the 4th, then maybe instead of having a Pikachu, a Voltorb, and a Raichu, he would instead have a Magneton, an Electrode, a Raichu, and a Jolteon. You could really experiment with this and add a ton of potential replayability. Add in an Electabuzz, like, so much more that you could do. This would also encourage people to replay the game over and over again because there would be more ways to play through it. In general, a change like this would massively impact the Pokemon series, because it would give you plenty of reasons to go back and play through the game again, aside from curious nostalgia or trying to remember what the plot of the games were. With the exception of very few of the games in the series, Black and White, Black 2 and White 2, Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, the plot has never really been a center focus of the Pokemon games. Hence the whole if you've played one game, you've played them all mindset that most of the people have with the franchise where it is. Opportunities like this would give you plenty of chances to go back and replay the game, because even if you played it one way before, try a different order. Maybe you'll find a gym that actually really obstructs you because you didn't expect them to get that difficult, because when you replay through it, they have different Pokemon because you did them in a different order. This type of design would definitely add some replay value and challenge to the game. In addition to this, wild Pokemon should also be scaled. More rare Pokemon should be stronger and harder to catch to compensate, but if you can catch one early on, that would be a very reliable and rewarding experience because you searched around and found it, and hey, you caught it, so you get to use it. I also do think that the Sword and Shield wild Pokemon that are really strong should be present, but they shouldn't be blocked like they were in that game, where you can't catch them because they're too strong and they won't lower their guard. In the original Pokemon game, it was possible to encounter a wild Dugtrio in Diglett's cave. It was way stronger than anything you would have at that point, and if you encountered it, running from it was not an option most of the time, especially in the remakes where they gave it Arena Trap. This was a very dangerous encounter, and if you were unlucky, it could probably cause you a bit of trouble. However, the reward of capturing it or defeating it was incredibly satisfying. Legends Arceus gave a similar feeling to this, where if you actually manage to catch a high-level Pokemon, it just feels satisfying to do. Overall, I see scaling adding nothing but replay value and potential to the game, but let's move on to the next topic. How many people remember this scene? Well, in an open-world Pokemon game, you should have the option to say yes. One of the biggest factors to what makes an open-world game so much fun to experience is the fact that you aren't limited to choice based on what is the right and just option. A good example of this being in Oblivion, yes, you can join the main quest, you can join the arena, the Fighters Guild, the Mages Guild, you can become a Knight of the Nine, you can do all kinds of good things and help people in town, but you can also join the Thieves Guild, the Dark Brotherhood, and murder people. You can do evil Daedric quests. You can do all kinds of cruel and unusual things. You can murder people in the streets if you want. Nothing stops you from doing that, and in fact, you gain infamy and fame points based on whether or not you do good or evil things. Certain missions give you the option of doing very cruel and evil choices that really reflect how you are as a person. You can completely screw innocent people over, or you can help them out and progress through the game as a good noodle. There's so many different options you can choose to take that it's truly an astonishing experience. Sometimes you want to play these games just to see what kind of evil options the game gives you versus good options. And Pokemon has never really explored this possibility. I'm not saying you should be able to murder people, but joining an evil faction might be interesting. Pokemon has of course showcased to us that there are many different factions and job opportunities in the world to explore that they could give the player to help add to the world a bit more. For example, you could choose to join the Professor as a Professor's aide and travel around catching Pokemon to research and help fill out the Pokedex. You could become a gym leader on your own and run your own gym with your own trainers. You could do the standardized collecting all 8 gym badges, or maybe you want to try something evil. Maybe you want to actually join the evil team and help them take over the world. You could start off as a lowly grunt and make your way up to becoming a ambassador and eventually become a actual high-ranking member or even a leader of an evil group. You can become a Pokemon hunter who specializes in capturing certain uncommon Pokemon and selling them to the highest bidders. You can also just do regular jobs like become a Pokemon breeder, a Pokemon rancher, a doctor, an officer. Like, there's so many potential opportunities in this world because they've built the concepts of it, they've just never expanded upon them. We've seen countless character types in the Pokemon universe that are all ripe and open for expanding upon. But whether or not we'll get to see that in the open world Pokemon game is yet to be said. This one, I don't even really think I need to explain. All I really need to do is give a side-by-side for examples on why the traditional RPG system is not going to work in an open world game. If you can't entirely see what the problem with that clip comparison is, it's likely because you aren't thinking about it, but most open world RPGs grant the player complete control of their character. This gives them options to work with, such as if the enemy is too strong for you to fight, you can turn and run in the other direction to try and get away from them. Nothing stops you from fighting them head on, and hey, if you actually win, it feels satisfying to do that. But you have other options, such as sneaking past them, casting a rage spell to make them fight each other, or just in general using ranged attacks like Destruction Magic or Marksman. In a standard RPG, this happens.
What is it? You, Penny, yeah, I'll...
This issue becomes far, far worse if you consider the potential lack of scaling. If you decide to go towards Gym 8 and there's level 45 Pokemon at the very start of the game and you're only at level 5, that's really bad. If you encounter one of them, you're not going to be able to run. I guess you have no choice but to black out now because, well, guess you'll die. You can't fight it, that's for sure. Some status effects also would not carry over well, considering, for example, paralysis has a 50% speed reduction and a 25% chance of you losing your turn that round. This, on the other hand, is what paralysis can do in a normal open world RPG. If that seemed slightly overpowered, that's kinda because it is. This is the effect that paralysis has in a normal open world RPG. Obviously, this kind of thing doesn't bother an AI, since they don't really get angry, but if this type of thing was inserted into an open-world Pokemon game, it would have to be banned in online multiplayer or have an easy counterplay. Otherwise, people would be infuriated by it, because normally in a competitive type game, people don't like having the control taken away. So this is one of those instances where an open-world experience and a multiplayer experience don't mesh well. Leading into another issue.
Mike prefers to adventure alone. Others just get in the way, and they talk.
I'm not gonna be a complete stick in the mud and say that this idea is bad, because multiplayer Pokemon is something we've been asking for years, and I do agree it does sound like a really cool idea. The problem really comes down to implementation and making sure that the concepts added to it are actually fun as opposed to just a boring chore. Rift Raids were a cool idea in Pokemon Sword and Shield, but they were difficult to connect to because of the bad connection issues that Pokemon Sword and Shield had in general. As a whole, it just made Rift Raids more frustrating than fun, especially since the mechanics behind it weren't well explained and weren't enjoyable, leading to a lot of frustration if your teammates didn't have the right Pokemon for the job. In addition to this, if you didn't have good online at the time, or just could not get a connection, the option to have to play with AI players made Rift Raids almost unbearable until endgame, which just made the whole process even more annoying. I think there needs to be multiple different modes for multiplayer, and that they all need to have different advantages and disadvantages for all the players involved. Not just battling, trading, and Rift Raids. There needs to be more. There needs to be a ton of content to keep people interested. All kinds of different things, like maybe there could be Pokemon marches where a bunch of rare Pokemon show up, and the more people you have playing, the more Pokemon spawn so more people can get them. That kind of stuff would definitely add to the multiplayer and make it more fun to play in groups as opposed to alone. It's also important to note that some players will prefer to play alone, and if that's the case, and some of this multiplayer content is still utilized in-game, it's important to make sure that the AI is not completely brain dead if you're forced to work with it. There was constant moments in Rift Raids in Pokemon Sword and Shield where Pokemon would be sent out that were completely unmatched for the raid, they'd get completely wiped, and you'd lose the raid from no fault of your own, but just because your AI partner was completely stupid. In order to make multiplayer bearable if you're not playing online with other players, this kind of stuff needs to be handled with care, otherwise you get shit like this. I rest my case. In addition, it would be really nice if mechanics like the secret base from Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald made a return, so you could decorate something and make it your own, so that it feels like you have your own personal space in the open world, that you can show to your friends or to other travelers by, who can then see it and be like, oh yeah, it's pretty neat. At times, it can feel very weird being a Pokemon fan in the modern era of Pokemon. Game Freak's decision-makings has stirred a lot of controversy and a lot of questions from the fanbase, and rightfully so. In my opinion, has Game Freak done terrible with the series? To a certain extent, yes, but they've also taken the series far beyond what it was originally envisioned as, so pros and cons. I personally believe that if you love the franchise, you will continue to support it in your own way no matter which side of the argument you're on. If you think the game should get better from where they stand right now, continue to speak with your wallet. Don't buy the games. Point out the inconsistencies and the problems with the game design. If you still love the franchise, by all means, buy them, play them, enjoy them with your friends. The fact that not everybody can agree upon something is important to note, because we all have our own opinions and decisions on how things should be run, and that's perfectly fine. Whether or not you agree or disagree, that's just part of life. The point of this video was not, is the Elder Scrolls better than Pokemon? The question is, as a community, what do we want to see change in Pokemon, and what do we want to see stay the same? It's clear with Legends Arceus that people really liked the concept, but wanted more out of it. So at the end of the day, is it going in the right direction and evolving, or is it just going back the way it came again? Ultimately, the community doesn't know, but we can continue to say what we think and voice our opinions. Hey, if you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching this video. I've never done a video of this format before, so I'm sorry if it was a little rusty or awkward. I just kind of wanted to get my voice out, and I don't know, maybe I just sound like a fanboy ranting about things he wants changed in the series and things he doesn't. At the end of the day, we all voice our opinions, and that's how we get the ball rolling and the discussion going, so if you like this video, leave a like, maybe subscribe to the channel, any sort of thing like that. And overall, if you love Pokemon, never stop playing the games and keep an eye out for what happens next.